A man on a beach, propped against a seawall, dressed in a suit no one recognized. In his pocket, a tiny scrap of paper with 2 words on it, torn from a book that took police over a year to even find. 74 years later, science finally gave him back his name. It never explained how he died. At 6:30 in the morning on December 1st, 1948, a passerby noticed a well-dressed man lying against the seawall on Somerton Beach, near Adelaide, Australia. He looked, witnesses said, like he was simply asleep. He wasn't. There was no wallet, no identification of any kind, and every single label had been carefully cut out of his clothing. An autopsy found no obvious injuries and no signs of a struggle. His stomach contents suggested possible poisoning, but no toxicologist, then or since, has ever been able to identify what actually killed him. 3 separate medical witnesses at the inquest agreed on only one thing: his death was not natural. Weeks passed with no identification. Then a suitcase turned up at Adelaide's railway station, checked in the day before his death and never collected. Inside were clothes, a stenciled name that didn't match any known missing person, and a spool of orange thread that matched a hidden repair stitched into the dead man's trousers. A strange, oddly meticulous detail that suggested the clothes and the case belonged to the same person, whoever he was. Then, months after the initial search, someone finally checked a small pocket sewn into the man's trousers, one so tightly stitched it had been missed entirely. Inside was a tightly rolled scrap of paper. Printed on it, 2 words: Ta Mam Shud, Persian for "it is ended." Investigators traced the phrase to the final line of a centuries-old book of Persian poetry, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. And remarkably, police found the exact copy the page had been torn from, discarded in the back seat of a stranger's car, parked near the beach, months earlier. This is where a strange death became one of the most famous unsolved mysteries in the world. On the book's back cover, someone had written a short block of capital letters, 5 lines, never deciphered, that many believed was a code. Beneath it, a phone number led police to a woman who lived nearby. She denied ever meeting the dead man, though people who knew her said her reaction, when shown his death mask, suggested otherwise. She took whatever she actually knew to her own grave, decades later. For 73 years, despite facial reconstructions, DNA testing, and even a court-ordered exhumation in 2021, the man's identity remained completely unknown. Every claim, every family that came forward believing he might be a missing relative, led nowhere. Then, in 2022, using DNA pulled from hairs preserved in his original plaster death mask, a university researcher and a genealogist finally traced a family tree to a match: Carl Webb, a 43-year-old electrical engineer from Melbourne, who had quietly vanished from public record the year before his death. Learning his name answered decades of speculation about who he might have been: a spy, a dancer, a smuggler. He was, it turned out, none of those things. Just an engineer who liked poetry and enjoyed betting on horses, which may finally explain why those 5 coded letters matched no cipher anyone tried. They may simply have been notes on racehorses. But knowing his name has done almost nothing to answer the actual question that made this case famous. No one has ever explained what killed him, why every label was removed from his clothes, why he carried a page torn from a stranger's book, or why a woman living blocks from that beach denied knowing him for the rest of her life. Nearly 80 years later, we finally know who he was. We still have no idea what actually happened to him.